Hello, I'm John McAllister, and today I'd like to welcome you to the John McAllister Sports Report. And kind of fun for me, I've done something a little bit different. Most of Aaron Bomer is not a household name, but he is in Northwest Ohio. The new appointed wrestling coach at Oak Harbor High School. Tradition rich wrestling program at Oak Harbor. They're one of the best in the state, I think. And he's following a legendary coach that had been there for 30 some years. So I'm excited for Aaron. Aaron's the reason he's on is because I had him in junior high in English class. And I liked him then. I remember him. And I never got to coach him, though. He went on to Heidelberg, wrestled there, and he's done a lot of different sports. But watching him coach baseball this spring, he's just got the it, I think. He's got the it factor as a coach. Kind of low key, has to crank it out once in a while, I'm sure, crank it up. But I really like his style. So I thought it would be important to bring him on today and talk about him, talk about wrestling, talk about coaching, talk about young coaching, all these things. So if you'd sit back and watch Aaron Bomer, the new head wrestling coach at Oak Harbor High School. Let me start again. Like I said earlier, my guest today is an old junior high student I had, and he's not really that old, but I read some of his records, and he is. But Aaron Bomer went to Lakota Junior High, and I've followed him, and through Joe Wyatt, I've learned a lot about him because I think you quarterbacked for Joe in high school.
Yeah, yep.
You worked with him in wrestling.
Yes.
A little bit. And baseball, probably. I don't know. And I will tell you this, Aaron, real quick, and then we'll go on here. If you can work with Joe Wyatt, you can work with anybody.
Oh, Joe's a great guy.
Aaron, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. I just saw where you are coaching Oak Harbor Wrestling, which the former coach had been there for how many years?
George was there for 34 years, I believe it was.
30. I think I remember when he took the job.
Yeah. I think he started in 94. So as the head, he's been there since, the mid 80s. He was a junior high coach, and then he transitioned into the high school coach.
Right. And has done an excellent job.
He's a legend of the sport. He's had a great career and had a great program.
Well, that's really good. I talked about I miss coaching you. I think I'd gotten out of it, but I did have you in junior high, and I remember Ben acquaintance in junior high, and some of the other guys. I'm sure if they told me, I would recognize it, but that's a long time ago. And I will
definitely.
Lakota Junior High was good to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people know where Oak Harbor is, but tell me, Aaron, tell me about Oak Harbor. Where is it locally?
Northwest Ohio, right off of Lake Erie, in between Toledo and Sandusky, pretty much. Small community. It actually got right by Davis-Besse.
Right.
And we've gotten a lot smaller over the years. When I first started teaching there, I've been there now this was my 17th year teaching there. We had 165 kids per class, and now we're down to maybe 100, 120.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of people through, with Davis-Besse kind of shrinking down. We've lost a lot of people that way.
For sure. And now let's talk about coaching. Okay. Yep. Tell me about football coaching. You played quarterback for Coach Wyatt.
Yeah.
And then did you coach football then for a while?
Yeah, I coached. So I coached I started out my first 4 years of teaching. I taught at Gibsonburg Elementary, and then the middle school there. And I coached under Tom Piper for a few years. I coached some junior high football. And
Right.
then I think I assisted a little bit with the high school, not much. And then I went to Fostoria for 3 years, and I coached under Tom Grine, and Tom was phenomenal. Tom was one of the best coaches I've been around. Really big game
Organized,
plan. Yeah, that was at Fostoria. And
organized
that
and
was
disciplined, I bet.
Oh, he was, and he spent a lot of time. Probably more than anybody I've ever seen, put in time for game planning
Oh,
and getting guys ready. At that time, we had Marcus Hyde and Micah Hyde.
yeah.
So it was when Micah was a freshman, was my second year there. So I coached, and then I after that I stepped down after 2 years, and then I just focused on wrestling.
Okay. Okay. Now you're coaching wrestling. You're going to coach at Oak Harbor this year as the head coach. And then you coached wrestling at Lakota too, didn't you?
Yeah, so I spent 1 year at Gibsonburg as a head coach, and then I went to Fostoria and coached 3 years as head coach there. And then at Lakota the past few years, I coached at Oak Harbor for 12 years first while I was teaching at Oak Harbor. So I coached there for 12 years and an assistant under George Bergman and Bill Scherf. So I coached 12 years there, and we had some great teams in that time. We
Right.
were state runners up twice. We were third in the state, and I think during that time we had 8 state champs and 7 runner-ups. So we had it's probably the peak of our program and had some really great kids going through. And then my son, when he was a freshman, my oldest son, I went back out to Lakota and I coached for 6 years there.
Okay. Okay. Now, I talked to you last winter, maybe it was 2 winters ago, 2 falls ago, probably now. I
Yeah,
talked to your and some of your players.
yeah, yeah.
It's
You came
really
in.
good.
Yeah, that was great having you in.
Well, that's really good. Wrestling, I'm going to ask you later about wrestling, and let's talk about. I think that's pretty good background. I will tell you this: at Lakota, the junior high, after a year and a half, I was born. I spent 13 or 14 years at the junior high, I think, and
Yeah,
after a year or so, I became a junior high teacher. I mean, it was so great teaching junior high.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Lakota, they may not be the richest, they may not be the smartest, but the kids work hard and
yeah,
they
yeah,
really are disciplined.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
and
Well, and we saw that with our kids that have gone through our wrestling program. Definitely the same thing. Hard workers, and we had some kids that really got it done in the classroom too. So that's just another good aspect of what we had in our wrestling program at Lakota.
yeah, well, the only thing I remember quick, and then we'll go on to something else, but if your head coach, he needed to be a little more aggressive and tougher. Bob Young, I
Oh
just don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I,
Bob was
I'm joking.
Bob
I'm
was a
joking.
great head coach with Joe on the side, but Bob was great. One of the best coaches I've ever had, and you knew when if Bob was fired up, boy, he put the fear of God into you sometimes because his voice would just run right through you. But he only had to do that a few times, and kids knew. Yeah. So, but
Well,
he
he
was a
wrestled
great
Greg
coach.
Richards all the time, I remember. And
Yeah, yeah.
Greg was a heavyweight.
He would throw his leg out there and dare you to take it, and he was just so strong and tough. That was even later in his career. He'd
Yeah,
still be doing that.
it's
So
really good. Okay, super. Well, one of the biggest reasons I have you on, first of all, started following you, and I want to recognize your success. But I watched you at the baseball game and the other day in Cary, and
yeah,
you just keep a calm demeanor about you. Now you ended up winning that game, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. And I talked to Coach Wine just a little while ago on the phone. I said, "Tell me about Aaron Bomer," because he goes, "Dedicated and hardworking." He said, "Dedicated. Whatever you've done, you've been dedicated," and I think that speaks volumes for you. Okay, it
Yeah,
speaks
yeah.
volumes.
I appreciate that.
Uh,
I, I learned that from all the coaches I've had over the years. And, I had some great coaches that spent a
right.
lot of time. And Joe was one of those big ones. Joe, he always took care of me when I was younger. If I needed something,
Yeah.
whether it was a doctor's appointment or something like that, Joe was there to take care of me. So, I appreciate Joe a lot. He was a big coach for me when I
Okay.
was.
Now let me ask you some. Those are tough. Those are easy questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Where am I here? because I go too long sometimes. Okay, Aaron, what made you become a coach? Excuse me, you went to Heidelberg, right?
Yeah. I wrestled at Heidelberg for 4 years there. I
Good.
was a 4 year starter at Heidelberg.
What made you want to coach?
When I first went into college, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and then I got into teaching. And a guy named Gary Bomer out of Australia got a hold of me just to start coming into different practices over the summertime and work with guys. And I really enjoyed that. And then he got me in as a junior high coach in my first year of teaching, and just kind of fell in love with it from there. But all throughout, it was all my coaches that I had growing up that I had good examples of coaches who were great to be under, who worked with me, who kind of led me through my high school years and got me to the next level. So it's just kind of always giving back to and kind of following in those coaches' footsteps.
Okay, so I watched you, and how can you help young coaches be better?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I get this question a little bit with different coaches that I've had through Lakota. But I think it's, as a young coach, guys want to be fired up when they want to go, go, go. And sometimes you got to, talk a little bit about, hey, sit back, be a little more patient. Uh, you know, Positive reinforcement goes a lot further than chewing a kid out. So I think the biggest thing, and that's probably the biggest thing I learned at Oak Harbor through George Bergman was a guy's out there fighting his butt off for you. They're trying to do everything they can. They don't want to lose. So we got to just, be positive with them, reinforce those things, and, just be there to cheer them on and help them out. And that was, because when I was younger, I was a little more fiery, and I don't think I always did things the right way. And, being Oak Harbor for 12 years, I got to sit in the room and learn for 12 years. So that was a great part of, getting to be a better coach.
Okay. I think with the new generational coaches, it's changed too. It's different.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Being assistant
Definitely.
coach, even
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
college level, Aaron, the college
Yeah.
level. And I agree with
Absolutely.
you. I agree. I think so many people get upset, and you aren't that way. I know that just by watching you. They they have to put that tough guy image out there. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean anything anymore. I
There's
mean,
some
you
there's
gotta
some
have
there's sometimes I got to get fired up a little bit just to get our guys going, but
exactly.
that's kind of early in the season. And then as we go and start tailing off, our guys don't react real well for me to explode and everything. So, a lot of the positive and, kind of just supporting them, that goes a lot further than chewing them out all the time. So,
How do you motivate them? Any sport. How do you motivate athletes?
I think we're good at setting goals. Definitely a goal setting where we want to be. We try to give them as much opportunity to get in the room as we can. We kind of set a table of, hey, we want to be here at the end of the year. These are things we need to do to get there. So, in our program right now at Oak Harbor, that's kind of what we've been focusing on, is just getting guys into the room for the summer, and from there, kind of setting their goals and going to see what they want to become.
And you better know your stuff too, hadn't you?
Oh, absolutely. That's like I said, for 12 years I was at Oak Harbor. I wrestled a lot with our guys, which I still do quite a bit today. My body kind of gets beat up a little bit now, but I'm still on the mat with them every day, rolling around with them, and I think that helps the guys. They see that I'm doing things that they can do, and it helps see I can be in those positions, and they can learn from me from there. But the 12 years that I spent at Oak Harbor, the first I met with George the first time when I first took my teaching job there. And he gave me a tape of about 6 videotapes all on Jeff Jordan Wrestling Camp. He said, "This is what we do." So, I studied those films, and then I just got to sit in the corner and also take notes. I tons of notes on my phones about different technique. And, George was always good about me doing that and just kind of learning as we went. So he was a great mentor.
Goes back to what Coach Wyatt said, you're dedicated. That's
Yeah.
one of the major adjectives that would describe you, I think, which is
I
really, really good.
spend a lot
Okay,
of time on film and trying to figure out, how we can get better. So that's a big part.
well, you can do that now because of the video out there. Video, you can look at it on your phone as you're wrestling.
Absolutely.
You
That
couldn't do
helps
that
a
back
ton.
in the day now.
Right, right. We'd have to, videotape it and then take it somewhere else, and so now it's so much easier.
And believe it or not, now I'm been out. I've been coached many, many years ago. Coach Tressel and I used to joke about the old 16 millimeter camera and the
Yeah.
film and stuff like that. And Super 8, but it's
Yeah.
so neat now, and it's
Oh, it
so
is. I
good
mean,
to have it like it is.
we
It's
have an iPad right there in the corner with us, so we can, see everything pretty much instantly.
how do you see the athletes changing over the years?
Well, I can say that probably at this time more than ever, athletes are getting better and they're more prepared. When we have all
Okay.
the film we can break down, they can see everything. They have access to all their videos, and all their matches and everything through. We use a program called MatBoss, so they get an account and they can watch all their matches. So that's, I think, a
Wow.
big tool that we can use, and they can sit and diagnose. And a lot of it, there's so much technique out online now that they have access to. My son spends a lot of time just watching catchers, watching different wrestling technique, and so they have a lot of access to those tools where we'd have to go to a camp back in the day to get that information, and now everything's online that you can just see and get better with.
And how much can you work with them in the summer? Are the rules changed for wrestling as well, or how
Yeah,
much can you?
we're supposed wrestling has pretty much unlimited, so it's pretty nice that way. We can get on the mats. We're doing open mats 2 days a week right now. We have anywhere between 2 to 6 kids in, and then we're going to run some camps this summer. We have some great alumni coming back. We have Ian Miller coming back this Monday for 8-hour camp, and then we have Cody Magram, who was a 3-time state champ for us. He's going to come in July and run a camp for us. So, getting guys on the mat, that's a big part of it right now. Absolutely, it is. And if we have some great alumni. We have Ian Miller, who was a 3-time All-American at Kent State, and he's phenomenal. He's a head coach now at Western Reserve in Cleveland, the academy there. But he's been
Oh,
at several places throughout the country as a coach. He was at Appalachian State. He was at Oregon State. So he's a great alumni to get a hold of and come back into our room.
you've coached both. How is wrestling different from football?
You know, with wrestling, it's a lot more of an individual aspect,
Right.
and I think wrestling, it's 6 minutes on the mat where it's boom, boom, boom. And football, you have
Yeah.
those times where you can relax. So I think the intensity of wrestling is a lot more. Football wise, you can apply a lot of those skills, and those guys are great to have on the field. When you have a wrestler out there, you're gonna have some toughness out there. So you get
Right.
a team full of wrestlers, you're gonna have some pretty tough guys. And it translates well. Tackling, obviously, wrestling's a big part of that. But just the intensity, in the wrestling room, it's a grind every day. You got to go in the wrestling room, you got to work hard, and you got to grind every single day to get good at it. So
And usually it's not air
that's
conditioned
probably
either.
yeah, no, not at all. And the good thing at Oak Harbor, we have some great tools. We have an indoor track that we can get on, 4 to 5 days a week. We do that before our practice starts. So we do a lot of conditioning on that. We have a great weight room there as well that we're in. We spend a lot of time in the mornings getting, maybe two workouts a day in at least. And I think that's proven to be a great asset to our wrestling program.
Okay. Now, are you going to stay coaching baseball?
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to. I have a daughter who's a sophomore, or she'll be a junior now. So I'm going to step down as the baseball coach. That way I can, focus on my daughter and get to watch her play in the spring. She plays softball. She's a 3-sport athlete as well, just like her mom was. So she plays volleyball, basketball, and softball. So I think this year I only got to see maybe one of her games this past year because we're always playing when they are. So it'll give me a chance to focus on her and also watch my son play at Heidelberg.
Yeah. Plus,
But we have some great guys who are lined up to take over. So that's, we set that up this year. We've got the program in a really good spot. We've done some really good things financially, getting some money into our account and doing some things to make the baseball program better. So we're living in a good place.
I think the last question, tell me, we haven't talked about teaching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. How important is it? You teach, I think, the STEM program 4 through
Yes,
7.
sir. I'm
Okay.
actually second through 6th grade now. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Fourth. Okay. That's a tough age, man. And,
It is,
okay.
but it's fun.
Yeah, well, sure. That's why I love junior high. Okay. I mean, as far as every day. Well,
Yeah.
Coach, I really appreciate this. You taking the time. Number one, I've known you when you were 12 or 13 years old, but I also
Yeah.
appreciate your drive. You know, you went to Heidelberg, you graduated, and you seem to be focused and things like that. I have to mention your wife. Anyway, how important is it to have a coach's wife? Be a coach's wife.
Yeah, that's she is being a three-sport athlete as herself and being a former coach, and she still coaches varsity volleyball.
Yeah.
She's coached with me with youth softball as well. She was a really good basketball coach when she coached. She had a JV team that went 20-0 at Lakota. So I bounce a lot of stuff off her, and she'll tell me sometimes, hey, I don't think you should have done that. So she keeps me humble. Definitely, she keeps me in line, and she's great to run ideas off of. So she's very supportive too.
Well, I'm sure she is. Aaron, I appreciate it. And it's really been neat talking to you. Okay.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.